writes C.S. Lewis. Take in what there is, and give no thought to what might have been there or what is somewhere else. This book is also about the present moment, but the emphasis is now widened. Not only do we appreciate that the here and now can bring meaning to our own lives, but we recognise too that our own present moments can bring light to the lives of others. We live in a society where achievements, wealth and success are, by and large, valued higher than altruistic actions. Responsibility for those suffering, for those in the throes of injustice and for environmental concerns is, therefore, sometimes overlooked, as individual endeavour and greed is, often unconsciously, championed. There are signs, however, that a new paradigm is emerging, where we are beginning to recognise that the cult of celebrity, the obsession of lust, and the glorifying of power are false gods. In the words of T.S. Eliot, increasingly many of us no longer feel at ease, quote, in the old dispensation. By using the present moment to be present to each other, we can choose another way of living, as we stand alongside others who suffer and share willingly in their vulnerability, weakness and uncertainty. It is, after all, when we attune ourselves to love's frequency that the quest for meaning, purpose and strength can be fulfilled. This fact became particularly clear to me during two periods of my life. First, a number of years ago, I underwent a period of intense pain and suffering. During that time, I was diagnosed with a degenerative back condition and underwent spinal surgery. For almost a year, I was restricted to lying down at home, alone, unable to work, and limited to only short, pain-filled walks each day. One morning, I struggled downstairs to answer my front door. On the step stood a 24-year-old man, whom I had only met once before in passing, at a funeral at which I had officiated. The young man announced that he had heard of my back injury and knew that I lived alone, so he was wondering whether he could help with any household chores. For the next 6 months, James came over to my house regularly, at least once a week, and would do my washing up, empty my bins, and do my grocery shopping for me. Outwardly, his altruism offered no real gain for this popular and trendy young man who was training to be a lawyer. His assistance was not born out of a sense of duty, and it was not done for any payment. Furthermore, he was not a churchgoer, so there was no outward religious incentive. Yet his visits did not simply bring help to me at a time of helplessness. I recall him later disclosing to me that he had no real idea what had inspired him to offer support, but in his little acts of compassionate kindness he had found a meaning that was beyond anything he was experiencing in his life of partying and studying. The other event that helped bring me to a realization that meaning and purpose are forged through compassion occurred in my first year of ministering in a church in Cardiff. A member of my congregation asked me to visit her work colleague's father, who had been diagnosed with a brain tumour. Over the next 3 months, I visited Ray's bedside regularly, and my time with him had a profound effect on me. I would always walk into a barrage of abuse about my beloved Swansea City football team, as he was a fan of our greatest rivals, Cardiff City. The rest of the time with him was spent chatting, debating, laughing and crying. During the last 2 weeks of his life, I visited him daily, often simply to hold his hand and then to drink coffee with his struggling family. At his funeral, his grieving wife told me that my presence at his bedside had brought much comfort and hope to this non-church attender. Yet, in my mind, the purpose and meaning that had been engendered had been mutual in a way I would never have imagined, and I was walking away from our short association having been deeply affected. Compassion in the present moment can certainly bring a purpose and reason to a world that seems to struggle with locating significance. My book, Finding Hope and Meaning in Suffering's emphasis on the importance of discovering individual inner meaning, rooted itself